Okay, I'll start it back up.
Okay, we're waiting for
Ryan gets.
Brian and,
So we review and approve these?
yeah, we could, yeah, let's go do that, so we're efficient. I like that idea. So we have so let me open it up. The Town of Newington Conservation Commission on Thursday, December 9th, 2021. It is now 6:35, and we're gonna start with the Jane's wonderful minutes from the meeting on Thursday, October 14th of 2021. The year has gone by. Any corrections, comments?
I turned it on.
Yes.
I didn't have any comments.
Okay, we have
So
no-
Laura and I abstained because I don't think neither of us were.
Well,
But you don't have to abstain, that's
You-
even.
Yeah, you're always the best editor.
Because that's it, if you read them, and you found an error, and you wanna point it out to me, please, feel free.
I will say that this reads a lot like the other, September? When did we hashed through this before?
Yeah, we do that a lot.
Yeah.
The subcom came back, you know.
Yes,
it's the
yes,
second
yes,
time
they
through.
did,
It's
yes,
like,
yes.
Really?
Yeah, because you weren't here, they came back with the final, the planting plan.
Yep.
And we also had, talk on the mitigation possibilities and the dredge and fill permit right there, so no other plans? Oh, we also had
Comments?
the Acrelease come in and talk about their subdivision, so. Can I have a motion to accept it?
Can I make a motion even though I
Yes,
wasn't there?
absolutely.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes as written.
I'll second the motion.
All those in favor? Okay, great. I just, an update,
Because she wasn't mentioned.
yeah. I did find out from Martha that the Conservation Commission Fund it had $162,651.
So the last part,
That.
651?
Yeah, 651, that was me.
Okay.
And then, they're adding in $24,180 from the Acrelake subdivision.
From the current use?
Current use, yes. So we did find that out. I did present, the budget to the, selectmen, and I did do a slight change. I took the two highest, items, which was the $5,000, which we had voted on for, encumbering to the 22 budget. And I also put in the $500 for the education, because those are our two largest items. And then we hadn't used either one.
So you took them away?
No, I asked them to encumber them for
Encumber.
the next year.
The 5,000 was for what?
What, that's for our, like Mark West, or any
Consultant.
consultants, thank you. I don't have the list in front of me. And then the 500 was the education. So I think it was, I can't remember what was the final amount, but it wasn't very much. So we met their
Great.
request to keep it low. Okay, what-
So this means that I can't make a motion to increase the pay of the highly paid volunteers on the conservation committee?
you could double it and it still would be 0.
Do it, make a motion.
We learned that today, because if a Christmas tree farm, and their daughter is in charge of all the internet and that kind of stuff, and she handled their first complaint, and her mother was going, you get a double one raise.
That's funny.
0.
Jane, I want to bring up something on the budget. I don't know, and I don't even know I know Brian's here. I know, and I don't know the answer to this question, but the Watson subdivision down the road, do you know if that land is in current use?
Part of it is, and
Okay,
as
so,
soon as it is.
then you get another bump next
Right,
year. so
Right,
that'd be nice.
right, so whenever that gets,
Yeah.
it's not at that point.
No, I just, I mean,
Yeah.
it'll be another additional
Right.
year.
I did,
Conservation.
request that too. Okay, so, are you ready over there?
Aye, yes.
And so this is on the application.
No, this is Brian Getz from the city of Forest Smith.
Yeah, City of Fort.
And Duncan Mellor is here.
Howdy.
So Brian, John Krebs, sorry we haven't met in person, but what I was hoping that you could do is just sort of, give us an update of where you're at with the city.
Yeah,
I know I've given all the materials that you
Sure.
sent to me to the commission, so they have everything.
Yep.
And then and Duncan's here, so we can talk about how we can get the mitigation funds into the town's hands versus the ARM fund. So I'm hoping that we can, have a discussion about that.
we've had this discussion across the water with Durham, and basically, project is moving forward. Permitting is taking a long time, over 2 years now, so we are, progressing, both on design, permitting, and we do hope to get, some funds through Representative Pappas, to help fund the project, but the monies are approved already by the city, for the construction. So
When do you anticipate construction to start?
this time next year. So basically, through a lot of factors, some redesign was really in response to comments from both the New Hampshire DES and the Army Corps of Engineers on what they felt was not appropriate to protect turbidities and that. So our engineers took their comments and basically did some redesign, which is going to add probably over $1 million of expense just for the construction methods, but it's going to be done such that should be more protective of the waters to do it that way. So that was the biggest change there. So the other thing is with COVID and supplies, we knew that trying to bid the project in October for a November staging and start date, construction has to happen during the winter months. So based on other projects and our consultants' work, that actually we were afraid we weren't be able to get the pipe. So materials are such that lead time was perhaps up to 3 or 4 months. So we decided, okay, we're going to get the permit, we're going to get everything ready, we're going to bid it summer of next year, and what the contractor, and then again, this is still what we intend to do, but as with this project, some things have changed along the way, so no written in stone that this will happen this way, but our plan right now is to bid it late summer, get the contractor on board, have the contractor right away order the pipe so that, they won't be doing any work here, but they will have the pipe on order so that when they are ready to stage in November, December of next year, that they'll have the pipe ready to go. And then the construction will take place after the first of the year. For the most part, the in-water construction hopefully be done February or March, and then they'll move into restoration. There is restoration in this related to the construction, to the site work, to the easement area. The town has, kindly granted to us, thank you, Martha, because we are gonna stage for the most part on this side of the water, because there's a lot more room. The Durham side, the access is not great, and there is not any really area to do the staging that's necessary. And then we do restoration, and the line would be in place in the summer of, give my dates right, 23. Everything will be back up and going. And so we have come here as the memo that our engineers summarized, and I shared with you. This would be the third time we've talked to the Conservation Commission. We've also met with the Select Board, and we have responded to comments, but based on the mitigation thing, Martha shared with us some of the projects you have somewhat in design. They don't fit the realm of what the Army Corps requires for mitigation, the combined DS Army Corps. So basically, they are saying that we need to put the monies into the in lieu fund, and that the town can apply for those for their projects. We're certainly happy, as we are with Durham. They have various projects they're doing as well. We're certainly offering a letter of support, highly encouraging them to award the monies needed for your project, and hopefully that, it's a ranking system, and for you, hopefully that get your project up. But they said that, site-specific projects aren't really that viable. The conditions are way too onerous on what we would have to do, even if there was a project, because they're putting a 5-year timeline. It's, I guess, a requirement that if something's done, there's a yearly report on it, there's follow-up, and if after 5 years the restoration doesn't work, they'll have to have a secondary restoration project or that be done. So, that's where we stand. We have a meeting next, as also, given to you, a summary, this 2-pager following the informational meeting flyer, basically summarize the project, give people a full intro of what it is and why it's happening, what the methods of construction are, how the restoration is spoken to here as well, and then our anticipated schedule, which, as it says here on the second page of that, is winter. We're going to get final design and permitting. We do expect to bid it June of next year, and construction mobilization would happen sometime in October, with the construction occurring over the winter. So with the in-water work. So we do have a meeting with the fisheries people. The regulators suggested, as we fully agreed to, have a meeting with the oyster community, the fisheries people. So we have a meeting next Tuesday that's going to be held both at our city hall with our consultant and the regulators, and also via Zoom. So people that aren't comfortable coming to the meeting in person or are unable to get there will be able to attend and ask questions via Zoom. So that's where the project is at the moment.
Right, Derek Wilson. The in lieu fund that you mentioned, is that the state fund, or is that a different fund? Is this the state fund that
The arms
Any-
funding?
the arms-
arms
any
funding?
I
town-
believe so, yes.
any town in New Hampshire can apply for? Is that what that is?
Yes.
Okay, and that's a done deal, that decision, I take?
Well, we don't think so. I mean,
Yeah, I've had some discussions with the Army Corps of Engineers. There's a 1980 rule which covers their mitigation. There's an agreement between the Army Corps of Engineers and the EPA. And I went through that yesterday, and it has to do with compensatory mitigation rules. It actually says that when compensating for impacts to marine resources, the location of the compensatory mitigation should be chosen to replace the lost functions and services within the same marine ecological system. and they even reference the littoral drift cell, which is the area of the shoreline where the sand is moving back and forth. From reviewing Google Earth images, it appears that littoral drift cell is entirely on Fox Point. We have rocky headlands on either end, so that sand would be moving back and forth. So I think there would be a strong argument there for the Army Corps to actually be doing in-kind mitigation at Fox Point. It does go on to say that the preferred type of mitigation is in-kind mitigation instead of out-of-kind. My understanding is the way they've been operating, such as with the Eversource cable crossing, that they actually were doing an alternative that they call a watershed approach, which is where they can go do any mitigation they want within the watershed. DES has defined the coastal watershed as being the entire New Hampshire seacoast, regardless of all the different river systems that flow into the ocean. And that extends all the way inland to the Merrimack River watershed, so it's a huge area. So they've basically been operating where they can take that mitigation money and go spend it inland somewhere.
Right.
And I think from our prior discussion, you said you've applied before and they've never
Yeah.
granted any
Yeah.
grant applications?
We've never even gotten to first base with them,
Yeah.
type thing, so.
So I think there's certainly from the federal rule
Mhm.
and the Army Corps mitigation, there's two pieces of mitigation, one for the state, one for the Army Corps. At least that portion for the Army Corps that I think Brian, from the correspondence he submitted, they were saying it has to be an in lieu fee payment to the ARM fund. The federal rule does not appear to read that way.
Okay, so it's sounding like with the Army Corps, it would be within the intertidal zone?
I think
Is
within that,
mitigation?
it has to be, I think, a marine-related mitigation
Okay,
is the preferred approach. And then they're saying within the littoral cell, which is the area where the sediment's moving, which, some coastlines, if you were to go down to the beach in Seabrook, it extends all the way down to the Merrimack River,
Right.
The area where the sand's moving. For Fox Point, the Great Bay is much more limited on the extent of those littoral cells. It is apparently at the discretion of the district engineer for the Army Corps. According to these rules, they are supposed to put very specific conditions into their permit that requires the mitigation and follow up to ensure that the mitigation is done properly. From my discussions with the Army Corps for this project, it doesn't sound like they normally do that on their permits. They just give the cash payment to the ARM fund and walk away, and are done with it.
mhm.
So they don't really seem to be following their own rules.
And I'm wondering if federal rules would, kind of trump state rules.
I don't know about that. I think because they're two separate mitigation pots, I think there would be the state rules which say the applicant is supposed to come to the town and say, do you have any mitigation opportunities? The feds don't say that. They do allow for cash payments, but they have a lot of specifics, particularly with regard to marine impacts. And I think we discussed this in the last meeting relative to the opportunities out there. The tip end of Fox Point, which is where the water main is coming ashore, the CFA that was included in this application actually described that South Bluff area as eroding at a very, very high rate. And so there would be some benefit I would see to the city. Their water main is located behind that bluff. If it is in fact eroding at a very high rate, at some point that water main is going to get exposed and fall over the edge of the bluff. So I think there would be benefit to the city to doing a mitigation project out there. It's on the same lot, so I would think you could include that in your permit application, make it an add-on to the existing permit application rather than doing a new permit application.
So has the city looked at that?
We've already responded to comments from the town, and our engineer has looked into that. It would have been nice to hear from Mr. Millar. He works for us too, so. As a courtesy, it would have been nice to know what we're covering here.
Well, if we're gonna have to apply at least for the city side, which I'm assuming is the land side, right? Mitigation. Am I interpreting this correctly?
No, I think that the state mitigation is required for the pipe that crosses the bay. So I think the impact area is probably the same for both. There's the
Oh,
pipe
okay,
being laid on the
okay,
bottom
I'm
of the
sort of
bay.
separating, I'm thinking Army Corps of Engineers in the water and,
I think it's just because it's two separate permits, and
Yeah,
each one has
okay,
its own
gotcha.
mitigation requirement.
yeah,
But
All this information was shared with the town,
yeah.
all of it.
Well, I'm just trying to
Copied-
think of
copied
what
with
we,
the Conservation Commission. There is trench and excavation, that, you know, it's all basically calculated up.
I was just trying to think of what mitigation we could apply for that we could locate at, you know, after the construction's done.
Right.
So, you know, is it reinforcing the embankment? Is it, you know,
Well,
doing
I
more?
think that rather than having to apply for it, it'd be easier, I mean, what I think we'd rather do is say, we don't wanna apply for it, we wanna just do it.
Yeah,
Because
okay.
if we have to apply for it, as you say, we'll never get to first base. But I did want to say, Brian, if there's any fault, don't look at Duncan and put any blame on him for not sharing information with you. A lot of this came up recently, and we're just trying to make sure that we don't miss the, as Jane said, and as Martha will tell you, we have been very unsuccessful tapping into ARM funds. So this is, you know, we're trying to make, and we got a serious problem at Fox Point with erosion, so this may be our only opportunity to fix that.
I've been out there,
Yeah.
yeah,
So
and
this is
we,
not Duncan's issue, if anybody, it's my issue for bringing this up at the last minute, and I do
And I've
apologize.
been urging John to do this really recently. We're really.
yeah, well, I, you know, I could have been better prepared for the meeting had I known what I was having to talk about.
And we don't have.
So I guess I need to come back with my engineer to answer Mr. Mallore's, you know,
But we.
posing that we're not doing as we could have done. Because we've been in meetings, we've had, you know, multiple Zoom meetings. We did this across the bay with Durham. We tried our darndest with them. That's part of our experience. That they, in the end, you know, because you have essentially four parties. You have us, you have the local town, you have DES, you have EPA. And if I could add up the hours and time I've spent trying to do something, but we have to get a water main in that bay soon. And we wanted to do it this year. Now we gotta wait another year, and hopefully it doesn't spring a leak between now and then. When we put that water main in, we will restore according to the permit. And we will support the town in whatever we can do to restore that. But I tell you what, everybody has said no to us. Everybody. And I'm sorry if I vent, but they're all saying no. We need to get this pipe in the water. And when we have a leak, when it's leaking, we'll be out there working, doing our darndest to do whatever it is, and hopefully we can do it.
But I don't think anyone here at the town has said no, right? The CONSCOM has approved what you've been doing, the selection.
Yeah, I'm sorry for this restoration.
God,
Because
we're,
we've tried to convince the regulators of, you know, a set project, and they have said, no, you can't.
And my intent here is to not derail the project, rather than, you know, instead of writing a check to the ARM fund, if those monies could be directed to us
Yep.
to do the work, that would be fine. I mean, there's no intention here, Brian, to slow the project down, because, I mean, we obviously.
No, and
we're relying on
this
that
is
water
not-
as well,
It's,
so.
there's model things, I mean, it's, you know,
No, I-
once we check one box, the other box comes right back to the surface, and,
Yeah, no.
and it's, you know, like with
No,
many
and-
projects.
No, and again, we're not, and I'm sorry if I, that's, the intent here is just to try to find a way that we can tap into those funds
Right.
without having to apply for them. If they can be just allocated to us, then hallelujah, but we're not gonna get them if we don't.
And I think it's more the agencies, I mean, reading the rules, I think both the Army Corps and the state should be looking at local mitigation. And
They said, what they said, now, I wish they too were here too, but, I mean, I can try to paraphrase and recall all the various, meetings and emails and consultants' responses to what they said was, they will look at projects and they rank them. So certainly, if our money goes into a pot of funding, that they then have an application that is in the same area, that they would treat that, and they also said, well, gee, you know, the monies you're putting in aren't that much. And so they could actually get more money, you know, so it's a bigger pot than just us putting, you know, the portion that applies to Newington side, the portion that applies to Durham. So they said that, they said, well, you know, don't pigeonhole a project into just the monies that come from your project. They could go bigger. You know, whereby somebody, Candia is paying
Yeah.
into a fund that says, you know,
We're
all the
aware
money's
that
going
that's
to
exactly
Newington.
what they do, yeah.
Yeah,
But then the usual outcome is that the money gets spent somewhere that's unrelated to the impacts that were
Exactly.
paid into.
Right.
And we never see any, so it's a little impact here, a little impact here, and we never see any of the
Right.
mitigation funds.
right.
I have a different question. I don't wanna end discussion here, but if there's some, I've got a question actually for John. So we've given truck access so that they can stage the pipe at Fox Point.
Well, that'd be a question for the Board of Selectmen, because they're the overseers of Fox Point, but
Right,
you
but
can,
I'm looking at
Sure,
you
yep.
because I'm thinking
I'm
if
sorry.
this pipe is gonna show up in October, the road, the last quarter mile is dirt. And with fall rain and a heavy semi, are we gonna need to get that road? Is that
I
something
don't know what the Board of Selectmen have done, but I mean, the road is certainly not in great condition today. I'm assuming that they're gonna, when you leave in the spring of
You know, we would
2023,
have to make
it'll
it
be,
good to be.
it'll be as good or better as when they.
For every project, we do a site walk prior, and we generally film the whole thing, and,
Okay.
you know, it gives us
Yeah,
recording of
there-
at least condition as we start, so it has to be restored to at least that, and,
And there shouldn't be that much heavy trucking in there, because I'm assuming once you get everything in there, it's
All the
it's
pipe
gonna
in there.
stay.
it'll be a big project.
Well, I mean, they're gonna have to have now steel for the cofferdam.
Right.
Well, are those, everything coming in there, is stuff being barged in there? Do you not, you don't know yet, because you don't
No,
know.
I mean, we have the design, we have the laydown area, but the contractor that, you know, wins a bid will have to, I mean, they may wanna barge everything in.
Right.
Work from the water, but that's probably not
that's
what
the-
we, you know, in the best case scenario, that's how we would do it, but, there were, you know, working off of barges at a very tidal area and estuary, it's not optimal either.
I guess I also have a second question. You're talking about awarding putting it out to bid early so that the contractors have the ability to buy the pipe. I mean, I think you know the pipe you wanna buy today, right?
Yes.
Is there any chance the city would buy the pipe today and say that they would supply it?
Well, we don't have anywhere to put it, but yeah, I mean, that is a possibility. When we finally get to permit time and when we get ready to send the bid out, perhaps that's what we do. But there would be, you know, there's pros and cons to that. If anything were to happen to the pipe, the contractor then says, you know, hey, you know, I'm not,
Yeah, it's
Putting
gonna
this
be
in.
damaged.
you know, you generally hire a general contractor that's it, you know, you're building the
Okay.
whole thing.
Any other questions, discussion?
Well, I guess just to bring it back, I mean, I know that, apparently Martha and Duncan, you know an attorney that works with Donahue, Tucker and Shindell that has some area of expertise with this mitigation funding. So what I was hoping, you know, I don't know if we need to come back here, Brian, but maybe we could have a staff level
Oh,
meeting.
certainly.
And just say, you know, and again, not to slow, I don't wanna slow your project down at all, but you know, if we can force the Fed's hands to give us the money, you know, with a little coercion from you know, a lawyer's, you know, that has experience in this area, I'd like to at least give that, you know, an honest try.
And part of that might be that, you know, the ARM fund, obviously, they do their mitigation project after the fact. So the permit's already been issued, you're allowed to start your work, and then the mitigation doesn't happen typically for years after that. So, you know, getting the agencies to agree to the same condition here so the city can proceed with putting the pipe in, and then you do all the mitigation afterwards.
I mean, anything we can do to just try to steer money to Fox Point, I think would be in the town's best interest, and, you know, maybe even the city's over time, I don't,
Well, and we're certainly, I mean, the plans are there. We haven't fully put the bid together, but let's, you know, there's potential on projects to do bid alternate. You've got a contractor down there doing work. I mean, that will be doing the restoration required right there for
Right.
us, so there might be
Might
a
be a
piggyback that
economist,
the
yeah.
town were to say, hey, you know, can you do a bid alt that includes our project as part of it? And then this contractor, you know, does it all, and then the town has its portion, and there's certainly a great, you know, you don't have mobilization, you've got a contractor there doing similar stuff for us that might apply there, so, I mean, we'd certainly, you know, entertain that,
Okay.
as a possibility.
yeah,
Um,
okay.
But, I mean, these things, we've done a number of shoreline projects in the city, and, I mean, they require, I mean, getting grants is great, but, I mean, there's commitments that we've had to just literally have, you know, the city of Portsmouth pay for as well, so. It's kind of goes with the land.
Yeah. So, Martha or Duncan, do you think that's I mean, maybe we, you know, we could try to meet at a staff level, and I don't want you to spend extra money, you know, more money on Wright Pierce, but, you know, I think you know, they have enough information. Now, Duncan has a tremendous amount of
Yeah.
information on potential restoration projects. I think you know, the 4 or 5 of us could get together and just see, you know, with our lawyer, just say, if we can push them and get those funds, you know, is there a way we can do this without slowing you down?
Right.
And that without costing you more money? Is that fair? And
That's
then
fine.
And then we can come back and, you know, we can come back with a report
We're,
to the
and
commission.
the money is another aspect with this as well. I mean, we're at about $6.5 million now that it's gonna cost, so it's, it's necessary. I mean, it's a 24-inch pipe.
Yeah, Brian, is there any, you know, you're sinking a pipe in there, or you're sinking a water pipe, is there, I assume the permit would be the same if you were sinking a water and a utility pipe at the same time, wouldn't it? It is slightly more expensive design.
No.
I mean, like sewer
No,
or
I'm thinking
gas or?
gas or
Yeah,
electricity.
they
or-
already took care of the gas, I think. Cause they did that before the new bridges. And they went, they're underground by the bridges.
And this is a unique
Yeah.
situation, because obviously Portsmouth has a reservoir 25 miles from the city,
Right.
and
Yep, yep.
they don't have gas, so it's, I think you might blow Brian's head off if you ask him to put gas in his water.
No, I blew my head off already.
Oh, I didn't know.
What would you, how about a telecom
It's pretty
cable? So, if that's fair, you know, we can meet at a staff, and I'll come back and.
Totally fair. In fact, you know, would prefer that, to be
Okay.
honest.
Oh, well, we wanted to torch you a little bit
Yeah,
today.
that's all right.
And I'm sorry to, you know, maybe not prepare you for this, but all we're trying to do is make sure that we can get something out of this, because we're never successful.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and if at the end of the day we don't, it's not your fault, you know,
Yeah.
but we'll try. So,
Wright is a really good letter.
No problem, no problem,
Okay.
sure.
So
Okay.
we'll schedule something, and you know, shortly, and then we'll get back to the commission. Fair enough?
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Okay,
Thanks,
thank
Duncan.
you.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Martha.
Take care.
Yeah.
Thanks, Duncan. Thanks.
Should we ask them to put a fiber optic cable to improve the telecommunications to the
Well,
town?
that's what they probably pay, yeah, I was trying to, like,
Or, hey, what's ever happened? Do you know if the bidding on the, current generators? Because they came years and years ago, how long ago was it?
about the gas line?
No, about having tidal generators like by the bridges.
I don't remember that, I remember the gas one, but not those.
Yeah,
I still don't even
and
know what year that was.
I wonder if they still have the rights to that.
Geez, Jane, I don't know anything about it.
Yeah, that was probably 15, 20 years ago.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, it was very,
Oh, then I definitely wouldn't have.
I don't know anything.
Easel.
yeah, so no one's come and asked for them, you know.
20 years ago,
Yeah.
is that right?
No, but I didn't work in, I didn't work around here, so, yeah, I don't know, I don't know.
We're in the small room, guys.
Well, we have much bigger.
Yeah, right.
You wanna move to the big room?
No, are you, this is it?
This is it. Should we bring more people?
No.
Yeah, just introduce everybody, so I have everybody's name.
I have an easel for no reason.
Is it gonna stand this time? Cause didn't you have trouble with your easel?
I don't know what's happening. We have no board to even show you, so we have an easel with no
Yeah, you
board.
made up for it, with the amount of paper here.
Well,
That's the condensed one, that's.
okay, so from now
Yeah,
on,
right,
when I see a
exactly.
summary, five or 6 pages and a map.
So I
So
ran that by,
I mean, who in their right mind is gonna read that?
Well,
it's a skimmer, it's a.
but wait, is that the whole
That's,
application?
This is the
that
summary.
is the whole
This
application.
is the summary. Right
Well,
there.
that's the.
Motion to approve, please.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so
If it's big enough, you guys can thumb through it.
are you ready for us to start talking?
Yes, yes, fine.
Right. So, I don't know, I'm Mike Garapi, with Nimble Hill Realty Investments, I guess that's what we're called. Mick Navari is also with us, Mike Caravan from Jones Beach, and Brendan Waldman from Go Environmental. And Brendan is here to
Talk to you guys
go
about.
through the whole, dredge and fill application.
I'm sorry, I didn't quite get the Jones and Beach gentleman's name.
Mike Caravan,
Caravan.
he's the engineer of record for the project, to discuss anything that might be specifically related to the crossings that we were proposing. Brendan has put together the application for dredge and fill, and Mick and I are just here just to answer any other questions we can, but probably can't.
But I do wanna give you, the board, or the commission, an update. We did get a letter from Mark West today, and I can print out copies of it, but maybe Brendan, you can explain, or do you have a copy of it?
I do have a copy, I can.
It would be helpful for you just to tell,
Yes.
explain to the board, one of the issues that Jane Kendall is very well aware of, that has been going, actually Jane Hislop as well, is trying to correct the prime wetland delineation out there. And Mark West, today, in a pretty succinct email, says, I 100% agree with their prime wetland delineation and their methodology, so.
Yeah. Yeah, so what we have to do for that is we take Mark's letter, we submit that to the state, but the state also requires that, we receive a letter from the town also saying, you know, we agree and we approve of this prime wetland change. We need that from we need a letter from the Conservation Commission saying that they approve that change. We'll also, in the end part of this, we'll need one from the planning board because they're the ones who ultimately, I believe, say, we accept this change.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what we're hoping to get part of that letter tonight, or not written tonight, but approved where you guys say.
And but just to be clear, by change, you don't, we're not changing anything, we're moving the whole.
It's just being shifted,
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, because
Yeah, I just wanna make sure everybody
it was an aerial,
Yep.
it was,
Yep,
yeah.
yep.
Can we, if we can, is it okay for us to put a big plan set in front of you guys so that we can look at everything as we go through this, or?
Yeah.
Because we've got the big plan set, we just don't have
So just for
a,
my clarity, because I'm taking notes, that's my
Yeah.
role. So, you're saying you're gonna submit that with your dredge and fill
Dredge and fill's-
application?
Dredge and fill's been submitted.
That's already submitted,
Yep.
this is a separate letter for the prime
It'll
wetlands
be-
redelineation.
Yes, so
Yeah,
it'll be an additional, we had an area in there for the prime wetland adjustment that we
Okay.
proposed. But it was an incomplete portion of the dredge and fill for what
Okay.
the state needs. So that was to get the clock running, so we could get the review period started. We'll submit this while we're still in the review period to, supplement the dredge and fill.
And we're sort of in this, we're kind of the guinea pigs here, all of us, with this prime wetland
It's,
remapping. This is kind of a new, it's not uncharted territory, but this is a new methodology they're using. So, you know, if we can have your letter of support, Mark's letter of support, which we have.
it'll make things go a lot
It'll,
smoother.
it'll enable us to remap that wetland.
So you wanna put the big plan on the table? So we
Yeah,
have-
if it makes sense, I mean, if you guys
Well, I
want to.
want everybody, well, let me put it up here, so
Or
you
you
know.
you guys have,
table forward so that we can see it. I don't know.
whatever you guys want to do, we don't have.
I mean, more.
Which one? From the whole thing? So
Yeah,
just
just the prime wetland one.
More trees
I mean,
in business.
we can just, prime wetland map is the one we probably need to at least look at to start with. You should all have the prime wetland map in your packets.
This has.
They do.
I know.
It's in this package.
It's in that giant packet.
Where,
We
that's
don't
not
have, we don't
fair.
have, if you can-
Well, there's a whole bunch.
Yeah.
Do you have the sheet there?
Yeah,
What sheet is it here?
They're all spaced out.
it just says wet.
Well, if you go to existing conditions
I
plan,
have C1.
it's on, it's on C1.
It should say wet, W-E-T at the bottom.
Yep.
No,
Let's
existing
see what
conditions.
Well, it's on C1, I mean, you know what, yeah, it's on C1, I don't know where
C1,
that's
C1.
really is.
This is what Mark had included in his document.
Yeah, but that's not. Who's gonna find the best?
Where's the wet plan?
I don't have, it's not part of the set.
Yeah.
So let's.
Everyone should have a plan that says wet, right, W-E-T?
It was,
How do you spell wet, Mark?
Are
Sorry, what was that?
Are you being silly?
I am, because I know how you are.
This is going well so far. All right, let's regroup, we'll see you guys next week.
I'm seeing a lot of Cs. No Ws.
What do you have, you have Mark's letter,
I have Mark's letter and,
you have one little
I have
tiny
one
plan.
small one that shows the prime
Overseas,
wetland.
green,
But-
green.
I thought there was a better color.
All we have to do is we just
There is
have
one that
to,
shows all the
we
buffers.
just expand this like it's an iPad, we'll be able to see it.
That's, yeah.
That's
This
the
is
front.
flags of wildlife.
I know, I just
Like
wanted
cranberries.
to show them.
Pretty colors. Got a cranberry ball?
Yeah, that's what it looks like.
That'll show the prime wetland.
That is not it.
Because that's.
Out of all our plans, we don't have the one that we need to see.
Well, I think we'll get, you're gonna get it.
USPS.
No, because we have the whole plan set as well. There's a separate map that Mark references in his letter.
Well, he attached it to his letter.
Yeah. And this is it, right here.
Well, then.
Yeah.
Do you have copies or not?
That's the only copy.
What?
This is the only copy we
I'll
have.
go make, I'll go make copies.
You can make copies of 11 by 17?
Yes.
Does this one help at all?
More
Um,
trees.
Mine is ready to go.
More trees.
This is the.
we're waiting
This is how it crosses.
I don't know, it cost me 25 cents a copy today.
We'll pay the 25-cent fee if we need to.
Per copy.
Well, that's
No.
fine. So what's
Wait a
that gonna
minute,
be,
So we didn't put American Chestnuts on the,
$1.50?
we did some hot version.
Someone's gonna pay the $1.50.
Well, who's gonna pay for Nick's, candy I
And
sold?
probably wouldn't.
You take candy too?
I had a root beer lollipop.
From
But it
was
from
from
2019.
2019.
Like,
Yeah.
not hybrids, but.
Wait,
like
how did we
solve
solve
that?
that?
I don't know.
Yeah.
It was something like
back
It was part of the,
Yeah.
Daniel Dredge and Phil, it's just not.
Yeah.
It's not
It's
part
not
of
part
the
of
plan,
that.
it's because Andrew probably made it separate out of it,
Connecticut
Yeah.
Look at the bottom.
to get,
fire and water.
money
It's not
for the
separate.
project.
Sorry.
to have
It's fine.
10 different backcross chestnuts put in.
We were really
Different
all,
ones to see which survive.
Yeah,
Where is this?
Connecticut.
Because I worked on a project, you worked on it as well, I don't know if you were the engineer or not, over in Lee. We did American chestnuts, we had
So did any survive?
there are some that have survived, but it's a, but it's not an easy process. Most of them, they're failures.
Yeah. Well, same with the elms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or they
Yes,
just live
down.
so near and they're
Yeah.
gone.
Yeah, my
Yeah,
wow
so
bill
you need to use
is
this copy as
better
well.
than the.
No, I've committed its memory.
Okay, so
Okay, here's what,
here's the
It's because
wetland.
that thick packet I gave you.
You can only have one because they're 50 cents each or something. All right, so this is the map that we submitted to DES and submitted to Mark in the town. And Brendan, you can go from there.
Yeah, and so Mark just, in his letter, explains that he agrees and accepts our changes to shift that prime wetland from his aerial designation to the ground delineation that we did.
And it might be helpful, Brendan, just to go over the four of them. There's actually, there's four changes in the prime wetland map.
Yeah, so,
The main one is the crossing, obviously, two of them are unaffected.
yep, you're talking about the title ones, I believe.
Yeah. It might just, if you maybe just bring up the plan here and you walk people through it, show them pointing at your finger. That'd be easy.
Well,
I think one doesn't have a circle around it.
Right, one does not, you're right, Gene, the bridge crossing does not have a circle around it. The two circle ones behind Guy and Lucy Young, or whoever it is,
Yeah.
those are not even affected, but we thought while we're doing this, let's make sure.
Yeah,
Okay.
so I believe he took out, so for reference, this title area here
Mhm.
is one that he removed.
He did the finger,
Yeah.
He
that-
shortened
that
the finger.
expands. I believe it's
Yeah.
because it was less than 50 feet,
Yeah.
and now in today's rules, if it's less than 50 feet or less than 2 acres,
Right,
it doesn't qualify as a prime wetland. And then he changed the title. I thought he redesignated this other title area.
this one, the revised, this one, or,
Yes. Sorry.
okay, here's the previous, oh, I see, okay,
Yeah, the title area stops. because of
Right,
That
right.
check, there was an installed check dam.
Yeah.
I don't know when it was installed.
it's ancient, yeah,
And then the rest of it, of course, is primary.
Yep.
Beyond that.
okay,
Your title buffers and state title buffers take care of protecting that area very well. And then I believe that's it. He does mention that this area is less than 50 feet where we're proposing our crossing.
mhm,
We're maintaining that, we're not challenging that, that's where the prime wetland stops. We're accepting that, to go through and challenge prime wetland is, it's a whole, it's another,
right.
another animal. So we're just maintaining that that is prime
mhm.
and going forward with impacting. How much do you guys want me to thumb through the application with you? And go through just, you guys have.
Go through each crossing probably would make a lot of sense and just show how we're, impacting each area.
Okay, so we're now moving on, so you need a letter for, so we need to.
So I need, what would be beneficial, or what we need to move forward with this primary acceptance or definition. We need a letter stating that the Conservation Commission accepts the changes proposed by Total Environmental Services and reiterated by Mark West in his report dated.
Okay, so does anyone have any questions on this? Yes.
No, it's just not, so the letter report is not done yet, correct?
Say that again.
The Mark West letter or report?
It is,
whatever.
his letter's done.
So it has a date and it has a.
Yes, we received it today, while you're going over this, I'll print copies out for the board so they have
Do you
it.
wanna just do it?
Yeah.
So.
Do you have a
Jay,
letter?
would you print
I have the
that or
letter
have John
and
print
all.
Well,
it?
that's what
And
I'm
sign it?
wondering, need a motion that we're accepting this, and then two, who's responsible?
I would make a motion that we, write a letter that accepts Mark West's, redelineation of the wetlands based on Mark West's recommendation and as outlined by Jones and Beach Engineers, is that the way to say that?
Put
You
those
wanna
words
refer
in,
to
and make it a
the-
clear sentence. That's how
You
we
wanna
do
refer
a
to
motion,
the-
we feel our way.
Go.
The print,
What was the
Well,
date
it
of?
was just avoiding referring to their print because it's their print and maybe Mark West.
What's
has-
Mark West's letter date?
December 9. And I'll go make copies of this for you right now, with the attachments. But I just want to clarify, Andrew, I'd rather have you change the word in your motion. We're not redelineating, we're
Designating.
realigning.
Well,
Revising?
John, does it say in the letter what we're doing? I
Just
mean,
it's
we should be able to
accepting
take it right off the
We're
letter, right?
accepting the revisions as proposed by Mark West. How about that?
Or by Go.
by Gold Environmental approved,
Okay.
And approved by Mark West.
He says, there's a difference between the actual wetland delineation on the ground and the map delineation. So that's why,
It's a map amendment, basically. You're accepting the map amendment.
I think if Andrew is making a motion to have Jane write a letter, she can use this letter as the basis. Is that what we're doing, or
Yeah, and I'm trying to make a motion.
or am I doing it?
So however.
If I'm doing it, I know what I'm doing.
Okay, I was gonna have you do it,
Oh, then,
since you have
She signs it.
official.
then don't worry about the language in the motion. I know what I'm doing. So,
Okay.
but I want to get you a copy of this for your record. So.
Yeah.
But
Make
does
a motion
Jane
that John
come in
knows what
and
he's
sign
doing.
it,
Yeah.
John?
Yes, I will sign,
She
but we need
signs
a motion before I say I will
I
sign it.
second that.
I'm
But
gonna go photocopy while your motion.
Okay, so
So
we
I
have,
made a motion
yes,
that, I'm sorry, the name of the.
Go.
Go Environmental.
Yeah.
Go Environmental, this recommendation for moving the prime wetland from the previously mapped area to the new ground truth version, as accepted by our consultant Mark West, dated today.
That's perfect.
That sounds good.
That's exactly what we need, because it's basically a map amendment, reflected in this plan that you have before you, and that's exactly what that DES needs.
and I need a second, please.
I second the motion.
All those in favor? Okay. I will sign the letter that John writes.
Perfect.
Make sure that's in the notes.
And I'm working at home, so I can come down and see her tomorrow.
So the last time that we were before you, I think it might have been Jim and I, and maybe Mick was
Yeah.
there as well. We met and we talked about all of the buffer impacts that we had to your wetland buffers, and they were related obviously to the direct wetland impacts for the roadway. We're here tonight to talk about those direct wetland impacts, and so, the crossings that we have, the first crossing, and then we've got a couple of small crossings for one of the driveways, and then some minor impacts here and there for the roadway. So that's what we've applied to DES for dredge and fill, and we have large plan sheets that show all those direct impacts, and we're hoping we can get your support for those tonight to advance to the DES for their review and approval.
Do you guys want me to move the big plans in front of you, or?
You have them all, but if you
So
want,
at least this-
plans?
we have big plans.
didn't want all the paper.
We can do them all.
Are these the C ones?
They are. We've
This is C4 through
Oh.
C6.
We've highlighted all the impact areas.
battleship.
You're all matched up too, so we'd rather, if you want, we
C4,
can stay a little
got it.
further away, so.
Okay,
So starting on C4.
Yep.
Is your prime wetland impact.
Yep.
That is gonna amount to about, I believe it's 1,510 square feet of direct wetland impact. We're impacting a tier 1 stream, which will have 45 linear feet of impact.
so this is the major crossing.
That's the-
Yes, major crossing, yeah. Yeah.
It's really only because it is a prime wetland.
Yeah.
Typically, this would be considered a minor crossing if it wasn't designated as a prime.
Mhm.
The reason an 8x10 box culvert is designed, which is more than enough to maintain the hydrologic connectivity for that stream. It'll maintain passageways for all amphibians, small mammals, probably deer won't use it, but, there's a couple of other minor, there's a 300 square foot, impact just above that crossing as you move into the site. There's just a little finger that sticks out of it, small drainage area. That's all the impact related to that sheet. The next sheet is where you have a majority of impacts, that are just kind of clipping the edges of these wetlands.
Next sheet is C5.
C5.
Thank you.
So moving from the bottom of your page to the top, you've got two small impacts, that are just clipping the edge of these forested wetland areas. I think it's, 40 square feet.
How many square feet?
40. And then there's another, the curvature of the road hits another edge of this forested wetland, and that's 175 square feet. After that, that's it for impacts associated with the main cul-de-sac. Then the remaining impacts for driveway access to lots. So the first lot that you're having access to is a culvert replacement, and that's for access to lot 10. That is gonna be 200 square feet of impact. And that's really for impact associated with the riprap that's gonna be helping with the drainage in those areas. The next impact is for lot 11. That is gonna be for driveway access. That impact will be 900 square feet. This particular driveway has 3 wetland impacts associated with it. That 900 square foot is the first. There is a second impact that impacts another tier 1 stream. There is going to be a 36-inch reinforced concrete pipe used, 45 linear feet, and this is 450 square feet of impact. Just beyond that is just another wetland crossing, and that is going to be, I believe it's 600 square feet. I don't remember that one's going to be a 15-inch reinforced concrete pipe.
Just one thing to note on that crossing that we're talking about, that Brendan's just mentioned, is that is an old woods road. So we're reusing that woods road. There's a culvert there currently for the first crossing that we're gonna be replacing, and then the second crossing, there's an old washed out culvert that we're gonna be replacing.
Yeah.
So we're trying to follow the pattern of previous development. And I guess it's kind of important to note that the reason why we have 2 crossings,
Don't say.
I won't? Why? I should. I mean, well, we need to say it, is, we have 2 crossings for these 2 lots, because the planning board does not allow shared driveways. So there's a reason why we have the additional crossing. It's important to note that, I think. We originally designed it as 1.
And that's it for wetland impacts. The only other impact to a jurisdictional area associated with this project is to the tidal buffer zone. It's just along the outskirts of the tidal buffer zone, but it's for a drainage basin that's necessary to handle the stormwater.
I think you
Where's
may.
that?
It's up here on C6. Yeah, it's outlined on C6, but it is also on C5.
And I think that was part of our, the last meeting that we attended, I believe we talked about that specifically, and that was part of your last approval, but, I think it's one of the impacts we have that I believe is part of the dredge bill.
Yep, it's all included in the dredge bill.
It's this,
Yeah.
this area, basically.
Yes, so we're just, actually, it's not, it's.
Oh,
it's
I'm
this one
wrong,
right here.
oh, I'm wrong, sorry,
This
so
is
it's
this
this
title
one.
buffer.
Yeah.
Oh, I see,
From
okay.
behind you.
Yeah, it just encroaches on it, just a very small portion of it.
Oh, it's because this is, I get it.
It's 3,300 square feet, I believe.
3,400 square feet,
30.
Oh, there it is.
3,385.
Yeah.
3,400.
Yeah.
Is this one
So you have a
falls?
six-pack, if the house that's going on that lot is smaller than that?
It's actually, it's an underground one.
It's probably gonna be the biggest house.
Which
Well,
one?
actually, it's a lot 9 probably, but I don't think lot 9's gonna have the biggest house.
Okay.
So that, I mean, we can't, we talked about moving that drainage basin, but any configuration that we would do would have a greater wetland impact. And where we're impacting buffer, it's up, so it's, and especially with that small portion relative to what's on the site.
Is that the only one that impacts the buffer zone?
You know, the tidal buffer, yes.
Side buffer.
Yeah.
So how's that gonna work?
Say that again?
So if it's, it's really upland because it's a wooded buffer. Oh, okay. I was just wondering if there was extreme high tide.
No, it's so steep
It's
out there.
there,
it's-
okay, yeah, looking at the contour lines, okay. It would
It's
be,
about 24, 25 feet of elevation, so if the tide gets
Yeah.
that high, we're all in deep doo-doo.
except for me.
Except for you.
I'm on the highest point in Millington, so it's Mount Hislop.
Oh, bar, you're
I don't know,
fine.
it's gonna help.
Huh?
It's a mountain, I don't know.
I've named it, you know, what was that movie where they like dug the mountain, made the mountain higher in the Wales or somewhere in England?
I didn't see that.
This is a movie we haven't seen.
Yeah.
Only you've
Oh,
seen.
it's a
Sounds
really
like a
good
Monty
one.
Python.
It's like-
Up the hill
They
and-
discovered it wasn't
Mountains
tall
and
enough, so
stuff.
they had to build it up a little bit or something. if I remember. Yeah.
Is it Poltergeist?
It's a lot
No,
of effort.
When they made the mountain out of the mashed potatoes?
Oh, that was Close Encounters for the third time.
That's right, sorry.
The kids, right?
Yeah, I love, well, be a father.
Okay, so back to the seriousness stuff. Okay, so now what do we have to do? So any questions on this, folks?
On this.
On
Good.
all these wetland impacts? Anyone have any?
It'd be helpful if you got, I mean, this commission in this town doesn't deal with a lot of residential development, just kind of unique in the seacoast, but, for this scale, it was this size of a project, it was 13 new lots, 14,
It's a
14
13 lot
yeah.
subdivision.
14 lot subdivision, whatever the heck it is. What's the cumulative wetland impact?
The cumulative wetland impact is 4,175 square feet of just direct wetland impact. And that doesn't include the tidal buffer.
No, I mean, we
So,
just.
so this would technically be a minor impact.
Right, and
Yeah.
that's my point, I think that I mean, the planning board and I think the commissions worked pretty hard with these guys to try to find ways to avoid, wetland impacts. Unfortunately, because of the design of the road that the planning board insisted on, there's a few minor wetland impacts. They wanted, open drainage versus closed drainage, so the road, there are side slopes that didn't have to be there, but it was a design that the planning board really wanted, so, and then that didn't add up to much, but it's incremental.
We also had an additional parcel, you know, that was gonna provide our secondary access that we ultimately ended up not utilizing. It would have been a much bigger cumulative impact.
I don't know the sheet though.
It's not on the sheet, but, you know, so we ended up finding access off of Coleman Drive, which didn't have any impact at all. So we were able to obviously minimize the final direct impact to less than 5,000 square feet. We will have to pay into the ARM fund, to DES, I'm not sure what the total of.
I think
That
you said it
is-
was fairly small.
It's not a large amount of
I
money.
think it's like 8,000 or something.
We'd rather pay it into the Newington ARM fund, but, you know,
But-
that doesn't happen, I guess.
Yeah,
Just
yeah,
Pay it to the state.
right.
So it's very very
I
difficult.
won't get on any soapbox about
Yeah.
prime wetlands right now,
Right.
unless you want me to.
Well, plus, I think we would have problems finding something appropriate to mitigate.
Yeah.
I mean, near this site, and it's
Right.
all private land. I mean, I could see probably where that dam is, and even, this isn't that going in, isn't there a really deep gorge at the end of that?
At the end of the dam,
Yeah,
Just past the,
going down to the
it does
shore.
drop off, but I think.
You know, again, is that an erosion issue, or, you know, that kind
I
of
think
thing?
so, and I think, you know, quite honestly, I think having that, you know, where that dam is now is probably not, I don't think it's hurting anything.
No, it's, the total, the upfront payment right now is $7,900.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Okay. We're not good at it. Okay, so, any other discussions?
Just a question, I mean, I'm seeing now that, there's gonna be some demolition. John, is that, covered in somebody else's meeting? When they do the demolition,
Yeah.
asbestos survey will
It's,
be done.
it's not, it's nothing that's regulated by the planning board, it'll be regulated by the building department, so I'm sure they'll have to make sure that all the materials are tested before the building. There's several buildings, two residential structures that are gonna be removed, plus
3, actually.
3.
Great.
Well, the one on Coleman.
Yeah.
Oh, right, you're right,
Yeah.
yes, Coleman, and then the 2 on Nimble Hill, and then some outbuildings as well.
And then the other question I have, when you take down a house, you also have to deal with septic. And again, that's somebody else's.
Yes, it'll be the building departments. I mean, I suspect that they'll probably remove all of the, the leach fields, they'll pump and crush the tanks and dispose of them. So it's not.
Okay, so I don't have to sit here worrying about excess, septic tank. I mean, they're significantly changing the contours because of the way they're putting the road in. And I don't want that material to end up in
No,
the wetland area.
no.
Not near the road either.
And our hope is that, our friend that sits to your right, to your left, lives in one of those houses.
Yeah.
Our hope
That's
is,
why I'm not voting.
our hope is that those residential units will stay there as long as possible. So, we hope that they don't tear them down on day one, that in fact they allow people to live there as long as possible. So I don't think the road isn't gonna go in the same time, the houses are not gonna be demolished the same time the road goes in, with the exception of the Coleman Drive house, which obviously has to be torn down.
Sure,
because
and
the road
that's-
goes
and
right
that's
through the middle of it.
So
That house
84
is
doesn't
big.
have to come down day one? It seems like the road goes.
Yeah, we have
No.
I think the, planning board and or the zoning board gave us a certain period of
Well,
time.
the zoning board actually granted a variance, it's kind of a
To-
weird situation. The zoning board actually granted them a variance to allow the structure to remain where it is.
In the new setback.
In the new setback, however, it had to be converted to a single-family house, so they asked for a variance to preserve the four units?
4 units, yeah.
It's a 4-unit building now, they asked for a variance to preserve the 4 units, they were denied that, but they were granted the variance to leave the building where it is, so it was a meaningless variance. So, but my point is that they've been very good to work with, we're hoping that house, that residential structure can stay there as long as possible, during construction, and then at some point, obviously, it's gonna be raised, but yes, the building department will make sure it's, not only the building, but the septic tank and the leach field are properly disposed of.
Yeah, I don't think the planning board is fully weighed in on the timing of when we have to demolish, either structure, but we're hoping that we have a period of time that we can work with all the tenants to help relocate and, so that, no one's displaced. The Coleman Drive residence is vacant, that's an easy one, but there's 6 other units that, tenants that we need to work with to, find new homes for. We're sort of committed to doing that. And as far as the environmental impacts go, yeah, through that demolition process, whatever permitting is required, making sure that the old septics are gone, and obviously the new dwellings will have, state-of-the-art, new, approved septic systems, which will be good ultimately for the environment.
Have you found any old dumps?
There's only one area that we've seen on property, and I think it is, I'm upside down here. It's on a lot, I think it's on lot 11. It's not really a dump per se.
You're talking about all the concrete.
Yeah, lot 10.
Really
Yeah, so on lot 10, there's a small area, kind of near where the fishing game field is.
Yeah,
There's an area where there's some old concrete.
There's a car chase out there too, isn't
Yeah,
there?
and the-
Yeah, probably, I think a rear axle.
Maybe it's
Like an old rear axle or half of a
kind of
car
an old
chassis.
farm dump.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
it's not,
it's more like scrap metal, I don't know if I would.
Also where that crossing is,
Yeah,
Crossing
yeah,
is-
it's
yeah.
all,
the Youngs just,
yeah, there's some.
But I don't think it's recent, Jane, I mean, it looks
That's
pretty
old.
right?
That's
yeah,
old.
but
Right,
it's,
right,
it is
ties.
an issue.
But
Yeah.
those are the only,
Plastic
yeah, there's only, those are the
disintegrated.
only two
Yeah.
areas. There's
Yeah.
another area, it's not really much, but there's another area down on lot 9, I believe it is, upside down, lot 6 actually. Or it might be lot 7, where there's an outhouse, there's an old outhouse.
really?
Yeah.
That's about it. It's
on
a
the side.
it's a two-seater. Which is great.
Wow.
A small family.
Yeah, so, but other than that, there's no other sort of real,
Yeah.
none of it's, environmental issue, it's concrete, or it's board,
But, sorry, I heard somebody say old plastic and tires.
Well, that's right where you cross.
Yeah.
It's not really, it's more
It's like-
concrete and, maybe
I
some
mean, I see
metal.
it,
it's,
I mean,
it's,
I
it's
see the pieces.
it's old construction.
But you know, you're gonna go through there.
That's all
and
stuff that's gonna get
remove all
blown out.
that.
Oh, yeah, it's,
So
yeah, I mean, it's
it's
kind of
not-
sad, it's not, I mean, did you go on the sidewalk? Peter?
No, I didn't.
It's, I mean, it's not, you're not like, it's not like you're walking through a landfill, but you
Yeah.
don't have to go far, you don't have to move your head far to see junk.
Right.
But it's not
Some of
from,
the farms,
No,
Yeah.
lands.
it's,
I mean, it's
not
all
just
old.
that.
As farm dumps
Oh.
go, it's not bad.
yeah.
Yeah.
It'll be easy
But
to.
It'll be very easy to clean
Yeah.
both
Yeah.
of those locations up, for sure, yeah.
And just on the side, are they gonna have to dynamite any of these sites?
The only area that will probably need to be blasted is in the very first section of the road.
Oh, where the rock out facing?
Yeah, where you
Oh,
first
okay.
walk, when, just to the, I guess if you're facing the house,
Yeah.
for you, it would be to the left.
Yeah.
Where the ledge is.
Yeah, and even there, it may not even really need to be blasted, because that rock face that's
It
exposed.
shears
It
easy,
goes
doesn't
right-
it?
right off.
It shears
Yeah.
like crazy.
Well,
We
more
shifted.
importantly, there's a test pit in there,
Yeah.
the ledge goes straight down.
It
You
goes
can-
straight
So I
down,
don't-
and we moved the road over even since the test pit, so.
What they may have to do is blast a ledge for trench, a trench for
Sure.
ledge, a ledge for trench, trench for ledge, so they can run water lines,
Yeah.
water, utility lines in there. But if you look at it's doubtful, I would say, whether or not they need to blast, but that's probably the only place they're gonna have to blast. And they may lay
Like
that
that?
back a
Yeah,
little bit.
C4, right? Or backwards.
The way, just while they're looking, the way they're gonna build this road, the way the planning board is requiring them to build the road, is they're gonna have to build it and then we'll go back, so they won't go down Coleman Drive. They're gonna go down, tear the house down, stage back there, leave all the equipment back there, and then they can build the bridge from both
Yeah.
directions.
Oh, okay.
But we didn't want them going down Coleman Drive through that neighborhood, so they're
Yeah.
gonna come off of Nickel Hill.
Yeah, so the only area that we believe will require any ledge removal will be from station, say, and
Right by Jane's
just,
house.
just to be conservative, probably from station 100 to station 300. So there's a couple hundred feet of road in the very beginning that may require some hammering or some blasting. More than likely it's gonna be less than that section.
Yeah,
Because we did get some decent test bits, throughout there. There was only really one section where there was a cut, right around section 200 or so, where we may have some blasting, and or hammering.
It's
So-
okay, there's a groundhog there.
And we, yeah. And we're, you know, where our utilities are on the, our utilities are on the other side of the road, so we
That's
should,
our
we shouldn't
wildlife
impact
going on.
ledge
It's
or
in the
trenching.
garden.
So, yeah.
And
So, and the rest of it is all, you know, the rest of the site, we didn't find
so all
basically a
the
rock.
building sites, do you designate where the septic systems go?
We showed them on the plan, we probably have dug more test pits on this property
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
than any other property that I've been on.
So the way this, the way this work, the way it works in New Hampshire is that if you have less than a 5 acre lot, they have to prove that each lot will support, has a suitable 4,000 square foot area
Area.
suitable for a leach field.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times planning boards will look at it, and you'll see somewhere in the plans, like, well, why would you put this leach field there? Well, they're probably not gonna put it there. You know, a typical 3 bedroom leach field today might be, what, 1,000 square feet? So they have more than probably 4 times what they need, and it's probably not gonna go there, but they have to prove that each lot can
Can
support a
handle.
septic system.
So we show a 4,000 square foot reserve area, with 2 passing test pits in each one. But there, on most of the lots, there are more than 2 passing test pits. So either they're gonna use one of those test pits
Or
that we've already
retest
dug, or a retest pit, which is more than likely, because, you know, they're gonna wanna know exactly where that system's gonna go relative to the house is gonna go. So,
And they don't have the added problem of well waivers this year, because obviously you have municipal water, where you don't have.
Are they gonna
municipal
be able to be on city water?
Yep.
yeah, it's all designed with Portsmouth water.
And that's, because there've been some lots that had trouble getting city water.
Yeah.
Did you get your letter from the
We have a
city
letter,
first?
sir,
Yeah.
from
Nice.
Portsmouth.
It's
I
not
think we
easy
have a
for
letter,
some
sir.
places.
Pretty sure we have a letter, sir. It's not easy to get a letter.
No,
sir,
it
from
is
the city of
not.
Portsmouth, but we bug them enough. I always try to figure out what's gonna come first, a DOT letter or something from Portsmouth.
And it's location on that one too.
So, but, yeah, so we're there, and, you know, as you probably know, we have a shoreline permit that we've already submitted. I don't think you folks review shoreline permits, but we've submitted a shoreline permit, it's all for road impacts, within the 250-foot shoreline. Each of these lots will also, not each of them, but most of these lots will have their own individual shoreline permits when they go forward with their house designs, for house placement, driveways, any
Okay.
impervious. So, you know, this is not the last time the town will see any of these lots. They're gonna go through a long process for permitting for each one. So, yeah.
So,
Wait, are you going to be you'll be constructing the road and,
I won't, I don't know how to operate
not
any
you,
machinery.
not you.
Like my
That's
lawnmower,
scary, that's
I
scary.
got a John Deere,
Okay,
that's all I know.
but I mean,
you're
in
not
terms
bringing a
of
Kubota?
cutting the necessary trees, right?
I'm sorry,
Your group will be in charge of cutting the necessary tree for the road construction.
yeah, so what will typically happen is that, you know, and more than likely, it'll probably be someone like Severino Construction, and they'll
Oh,
come
yeah,
out,
I heard
and
you
they'll,
mention that. Good for
they'll,
you.
what they'll do is flag all the limits of clearing, so,
Yeah.
and we've got them fairly defined on the plans. They'll be all flagged, and then the logger will come in and cut everything.
Cause I just heard you say you're trying to keep as many trees as possible, there's some nice stands of trees up
Yeah.
there. At the same time, you know, it's a problem everywhere now, is, the oriental bittersweet. You'll see it just in the trees, it's all in those evergreens, just choking the life
Sure.
out of them. I don't, know if you can do anything about that, but.
Yeah, I don't know, there's
You
a
see
tremendous
it,
amount of
cut it.
invasives out there on this
There
side.
were
Not-
further
no.
out.
Further out.
Yeah,
Well,
that's where you were.
there were a lot of
Yeah.
invasives at
Yeah.
that was really surprising,
Mhm.
because you're kinda in the woods and then you work your
that's
way
the way-
out.
the
and
way-
then-
In that big
Towards
isolated
the-
wetland.
Yeah.
Just before you get to the cul-de-sac, we're talking about that
Yeah.
area, I think.
I-
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think
out.
so, yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, but there's so many, I mean, you can't put a price tag where you can, but, I mean, those types of trees, you know, the size of those trees,
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
we would be tremendously foolish to cut more than we need to, so.
That's wonderful.
Okay.
You know, we're gonna try to save every single big tree. And it's kind of, you know, for me, I'm like walking down the center line of these roadways, and I'm like, I can't believe there's another tree we gotta cut. So I don't wanna cut any trees. I
But
mean,
it
I'd love
is
to be
so
able to figure out a way to
beautiful
get
out
the
there.
road
It's
out
just
there and
so
not have to cut anything, but it is what it is. At the end of the day, we've gotta take a balanced approach.
Mhm.
So, you know, you know, at the end of the day, there will be, I think, quite a few really, you know, nice specimen trees that are allowed,
Yeah,
especially
nice.
along the shoreline. It's kind of surprising to see how many are actually on the shoreline
They're
itself.
nice and straight and
Yep.
really lovely.
So yeah, I think it's gonna be a really, I think, you know, a subdivision that, you know, we can all be, you know, proud to be kind of a part of, you know, seeing it develop.
Okay, so, yeah,
Yeah, I have something else,
okay.
if we're ready to
No,
move on.
why, we need to make a motion on, signing off on this, right? Just,
Yeah, before we do that, I
Oh.
want to talk about this.
oh,
So, there's a memo from the New Hampshire Natural Heritage Bureau,
Yes.
and in this, it requested a search of records for rare species and exemplary natural communities. And basically, the results come out with a negative result, but there's an interesting note down the bottom. It says, a negative result does not mean that a sensitive species is not present. Our data can only tell you known occurrences based on information gathered by qualified biologists and reported to our office. However, many areas have never been surveyed and have only been surveyed for certain species. An on-site survey would provide better information of what species and communities are indeed present. Is this something you folks have looked at?
You guys have the AOT,
It's
right?
actually something that we've done, in fact,
So you've
So-
done a
so-
study on it?
A wildlife assessment.
You have,
has
okay.
been done,
I
yes.
haven't heard of
so
it.
as part of the alteration of terrain permitting process, now the requirement, recently, the requirement in the last couple of years has been that a wildlife study has to be conducted on all these properties, projects that have an alteration of terrain permit, anything over, in this case, 50,000 square feet of impact, because we're in the shoreline. So we've done a wildlife study, in fact, Bill Environmental, who currently did the study. That's been submitted to the state, so that sort of, kind of is a double check of the NHB.
Yeah.
You know, we've gone out there, we've done the wildlife habitat assessment, figured out, you know, what impacts, you know, we're gonna be causing, because obviously there are gonna be impacts.
So in that study, you found that there were no rare species or any, what's the other?
Yeah, I mean, most of what was hit with the NHB was
Yeah.
all kind of coastal.
Yeah.
And that's what our study, and also the results of that study was, is that it's coastal impacts, but there really aren't any coastal impacts, because
So-
we're 100 feet away from any shoreland impact anyway, so anything of rare and endangered is all in that.
In that area, that's why I was asking about the tidal
The tidal buffer.
buffer, is that an area that you've done this?
Yeah, well, you know, the wildlife assessment has to take into consideration all of the project impacts.
So it's for the whole
It-
project?
It looks
entire
at, it
project.
looks at the whole site, pre and post construction, it takes into account root drainage, all roadway design, and it actually looks for all species that are, that could be present based on cover type. So in Luke's wildlife, I haven't thought through his report, because it's one paper to go through, but,
It's over 100 pages.
Is this a
Yeah.
report you've submitted to the town anyway?
I think it was submitted to
I
the
don't
A.
think it was.
We can certainly submit it to the
I'd
town,
be
I mean, we're happy
interested
to
in
do it,
seeing
yeah.
it, really.
Sure, yeah, and it's a wildlife assessment that the DES has kind of signed off on the format of. I mean, it's something that's
The
probably,
format of the report.
of the report, yeah, exactly, with the.
So have they read the report?
Fishing Game hasn't, well, I don't know the answer.
Yeah,
We're still waiting, we're still waiting.
Fishing Game doesn't have, they're not required to abide by any timelines.
Yeah.
They read the report when AOT tells them, we're ready to permit this, you guys need to review this.
It's a long process.
Yeah, AOT generally doesn't comment on the report, they have Fishing Game comment on it.
So do they have the possibility, not, it sounds like everything's good, but do they have the possibility to reject the survey, or?
Yes.
To reject the survey, or?
Well, to bring concerns up,
Yeah.
I know there's one project we're working on, and turtles showed up, and we had some difficulties.
That's not my project, is it?
No.
Oh, good. I have another
You know,
turtle.
the
I
turtles,
was meaning to
turtles
tell you
are
about
coming
that,
up a
but
lot.
like-
I have a turtle one in Epping, I don't know.
We end up doing mitigation for them.
Yeah, And we typically know when we do these studies, like, you know, Gove Environmental will do the wildlife assessment, and if it comes back that we have a wildlife impact, we know about it before we even submit application to AOT.
Yeah.
So we have to figure out a way to either redesign the project or mitigate. You know, in one case in Epping, you know, a couple of years ago, we actually built a turtle habitat.
Yeah.
We built,
Yeah.
actually built an area where they can go lay eggs, because we were gonna disrupt the area that they went to. So in this case, we had no impacts, so it's fairly straightforward.
Do you have a specialist that you go to, or is it someone within Gove?
Let's go.
Yeah, Lou Curley's our wildlife biologist.
Yeah.
Qualified, I don't think he's technically a wildlife biologist, but he's been doing his reports long enough that he's accepted by Fish and Game to provide the report and the survey.
So there haven't been any rare plants or,
And I don't think anything came up for rare plants. I think it was all coastal, intertidal, and subtidal.
and you haven't had an eagle build a nest or anything?
Not yet.
Yeah, we're discouraging.
Might be
We're
one of those
active-
trees.
We're
actively
discouraging
out
the
there
eagles.
with
I'm out there kind of waving them off.
Cause they're starting to really, I've seen
They
them,
come and they fly right over the
yeah,
house.
yeah, I've seen them right on the highway too, it's like,
We're gonna
They're
get you out
pretty
there
awesome.
safely.
yeah.
They're pretty awesome.
Any other?
So this
Thank
is a
you.
report we should get, you think?
Yeah,
We're happy to provide it, yeah. I mean,
Not,
it's-
Not tonight.
not copies a zillion, but,
It's
You
a,
would
it's a
like,
seven-
we can send it electronically
it's
too.
a 700-page
Yeah, no,
report.
if you can send it, send it
Yeah.
electronically,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah,
if the
then
board
you
wants
can
to,
shoot
if the
it.
commission wants to look at it, great, if
Yeah.
not, then.
Can you make copies of it, John? 'Cause it's
I don't need a
700
copy of
pages.
this, I
There's a lot.
And
Well,
it's
if you can send, I mean, if
Yeah,
it's too
no,
big to send.
No, it's not too big to send. It's,
We'll do it.
yeah, we'll make it work.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
We'll give you a 10-page.
yeah, we don't need individual copies.
No, if they send it to me electronically.
Yeah, they,
I'll-
yeah,
Yeah.
electronic.
We can set up.
They're interesting,
Yeah.
what species correlate with which.
I haven't seen one, I'd like to, I'd be
Yeah.
interested in seeing it.
It's a fairly new process that we've been going through with Fish and Game and AOT, DES, last maybe 3 years, I guess.
oh, okay,
So,
that's
It
interesting.
came out.
It used to be NHB would come and say, there's no,
Yeah, right.
no hits, but we don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
And then suddenly they're like, well, if you don't know, maybe we should know.
It was
Yeah.
actually-
And that's the
Yeah.
thought behind
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Okay.
So now we do it,
Yeah,
and we do the
that's
same
good.
thing, we do archaeological inspection and investigation as well, which we've done on this whole site.
Found an outpost.
Yep.
That's interesting, because maybe at the point, I would have thought maybe you would have found.
Yeah, we did a phase 2, in archaeological, because we did shovel, they were out there shovel test pitting everywhere.
Yeah.
And nothing really of significance anywhere on the site, which I was very surprised about, because like you said, along the point, and we did all along the point, and we can see, C6, and nothing of real significance was discovered. I was surprised.
Yeah,
And not that it would have mattered, because we weren't in that 100-foot area,
Yeah.
the 100-foot
Yeah.
setback, but nothing was found of any of significance, so.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Yeah.
good. Any other questions or discussions or,
I don't have any.
so, can I have a motion to recommend there's so many things here, I guess it's the wetland permit application, the
Yep.
dredge and fill,
Yep, one and the same.
one and the same. So there are all these other little
Those,
sections.
those attachments are required forms by DES, each one is required for a major impact and the stream crossing forms,
Okay,
yeah. And
so
because
it's part of this, so we can,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah.
I'm just, and I was trying, do I sign off somewhere?
No, that's for expedited
Okay,
applications only.
so this is an expedited, this thing?
The-
is-
No, that is
No.
not a standard.
Oh, that's the, oh, I see,
Yeah.
okay, gotcha, okay.
So we reviewed it, so are we, is it an approval, is it a?
It's,
It's a
it's a motion to
recommendation.
not
Re-
object
It's
to.
not,
It's a
recommended.
motion to,
A motion.
Recommend it.
We don't object to the proposed.
it's a motion to,
And now so to the
please
planning
Godspeed
board.
the application, yeah.
That was a condition.
Please move this forward as
They
fast as
have to know
possible.
that this passed, and
Okay.
until it passes,
Says-
so their approval would be conditional
So to
on,
us.
on DES approving it.
Okay.
DES approves it, we recommend it.
Yeah, so I think, yeah, I think Brendan's right, I think the motion would be you have no objection with the issuance of the wetland permit. You're not approving it, you're not objecting to it.
But-
Which really means you're sitting on your hands and doing nothing, because it's when they don't hear from you, they're gonna issue it. So-
Right.
And,
Right.
right,
Or they'll write a request for more information asking if we've heard from you.
Right. Someone,
I can't make you.
So I'll make a motion to, I guess what do we say that the board does not object to the NHDES dredge infill permit for Nimble Hill Realty Investments LLC.
got it.
That's all right, John?
Perfect, excellent.
Have a second? I can second, I'll second. All those in favor, James? Not voting.
Abstain, yep.
Abstain. Okay.
Did you say
Anything?
the board loves the project, is that what you said?
Yes.
We appreciate your time, and we know this is our
Thank
fourth
you.
time with you guys,
Yes.
right?
Well, wait,
And you didn't bring
did she
us
call the
any-
motion? Did you call it? I didn't hear it.
Yeah.
They did it, yeah. it was,
You were interrupting.
No, it was four to nothing,
Yeah.
with one
It's so
abstention.
exciting, John,
James
something's
did
wrong
not
here.
vote.
Something, we gotta go back.
Is
Well,
there anything you guys want to keep? We have stuff here.
I have plenty of paper.
Alright, we're out of here. Thanks very much, guys.
There you go.
Thank you.
Okay, we've already approved the minutes. We're almost done here. Any other business? Done.
We're out of
You
here.
got your easel?
I don't think that, I don't know, right now.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
And I just wanna apologize for the way, I know Brian seemed to get hot on the collar
No,
tonight.
yeah, that's,
That's
Well, I know, but
it
I mean,
wasn't us,
I mean, I feel like it's important enough that, you know, they're talking about a lot of money for
Yeah,
mitigation, and we sort of have, this is our last chance at it.
yeah.
And I felt as though the city of Portsmouth was just dismissing our concerns with a quick memo saying, we can't do it. Well, okay.
Because they were told by the Army Corps of Engineers. And they were just
No,
like, oh, they
well,
said.
they were told by their consultant at Ray Pierce, which, and again, I'm
Yeah.
sure that, I'm sure that's what they're gonna say, but I think it's worth just pursuing a little bit further, because
Thank
there's, I mean, there's a significant amount of.
That's why I brought it up, John.
Right, I know, but I just, I
To
wasn't,
say,
I don't know why you got so hot on the collar, but
Well, I mean, I can appreciate it, you know, I've got the same sort of thing at work where I wanna get this done. It has to get done by this point. If you guys keep throwing things in my way,
yeah.
it's never gonna get done and we're gonna be in,
Yeah.
And I certainly understand, and I don't think that the pandemic helped, I mean, when you got I don't know how old that water line is, but it's gotta be
It's,
old.
and he's really, it is scary that, you know,
Well, it is, I mean, you know, I don't know what the hell you do, if there's a leak under
53,
the bank, you
54,
know?
somewhere around there. It was put in because of peas.
Say it again?
It was with peas being created, Pease Air
Yeah,
Force
yeah,
Base
yeah.
took away Portsmouth's main water supply.
Which was where, Jane?
On Pease.
On the base?
the aquifer of
That's the
Havel
Oh,
second largest
All wells?
aquifer in New England.
So it was all drilled, it was all wells?
Yeah, and so that's why the
The Army Corps of Engineers?
yes, thank you. The Army Corps of Engineers put in the line, I think they made the reservoir,
Is that right?
yeah,
Wow.
yeah, up in Madbury,
Madbury, yeah.
you know,
Madbury,
Dover, Corner, that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. So they've been
Wow.
piping the water, and they didn't take the trees out, so the water was in pretty crappy condition for a really long time.
Is that their only supply of water? No, they have water
No,
down
because
in-
they have some more wells, and they actually came back and looked, they came and drilled on our property, I think on the Ripley's property, on the Frank's property, because we're downstream from the Pease Aquifer. They were looking at, to see if they could, get water, but it wasn't enough for what they needed for a citywide type
Oh.
situation.
And now it's polluted, that aquifer.
Yes, 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 yes.
From the P.
And it was polluted then because the base was still in existence at that point. So yeah, so they're, you know, they're really limited in their water supply
Yeah,
because it's that or a few wells.
and like, yeah, I mean, like, Andrew said, I feel bad, I mean, 'cause I know they've been at this for a couple of years, and my intention was not to throw a wrench in the works, but rather to say, this is our last chance, can we
Yeah.
at least find a way to work cooperatively, before. we
No,
let this
you
thing
spoke
go.
very nicely to him, and that was, good.
I wonder how Durham treated them.
Well, Durham's been able to get the arms, because they have a big project off of Wagon Hill Farm that, with a lot of soft, soft erosion control stuff that they worked on. And so that was kind of our jumping off spot to
Yeah.
try to do ours, and they wouldn't even look at us.
So
Cause
why-
UNH was,
Why is that, like, is
well,
it?
I think theirs was tied to UNH, so they had a lot of research projects tied to it, like for the eelgrass and, some other, environmental changes over time, so,
The intent of the ARPA fund it's a good intent, I mean, if they just said, look at, they have $200,000, all right, let $500,000 worth of mitigation, they're just gonna write the town of Newington a check, and Newington's, oh, great, we're not gonna do that, we'll go out there and spend a little money, we're just gonna put the rest in the general fund. It needs to be overseen, I get that,
Right.
but to me, the thing that bothers, what bothers me the most is that the impact is in Newington, right on Fox Point, we have mitigation right there that we can
Yeah.
get it done, and then the money goes to Epic.
right.
Well, and
Really,
it
really,
seems
where's
like it'd
the-
be pretty easy
Right.
to put in some type of checks and balances to make sure that.
And Brian did bring up a good point, that they're gonna have a firm out there remediating
Right.
their stuff.
Yeah.
And
Let's
So
do
at
it all.
least he came
50
around
feet over
to that.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With other equipment either on a barge or whatever, right there, yeah, you're right.
But ARMS is like, when their criteria to get the mitigation, it has to be wetlands, mitigation specifically. So we've had other conservation areas, it didn't have sufficient wetlands, they didn't want it. And the other thing is, they really want it packaged up, so it requires us to, maybe have a consultant investigate it, to know very specifics on the mitigation.
Almost like the bid.
And it's
Yeah,
almost
To
like,
do the bid
Right,
first
right.
before you even go for it,
Exactly.
yeah.
yeah, so it's a
So
little
it-
challenging.
So one of the things we tried for one of the mitigations was, there are several, this is why I asked about the dumps, there are several dumps on the town forest. And
Yes.
so there's no wetlands involved, but it could be affecting groundwater, it's a safety issue, and they wouldn't even look at that. So that was one.
That's a
What
great
else?
example.
I'm trying to think of some of the
Yeah,
other
they
ones
backed
that
out.
we've tried, and it just
Well,
doesn't.
we tried to get money for, across the street,
Yes,
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 for the
right.
yeah,
conservation
Yeah.
easement that we
Not enough
paid,
wetlands.
yeah,
and
Again,
they
yeah.
laughed at that.
yeah,
so.
right.
Is it worth trying to partner with some, like the oyster people or Great Bay Stewards or?
You almost
like a
have to,
port,
because
you
it,
know,
yeah.
Peter Port or whatever.
you actually have to most of the time, because one of the requirements for an ARMS fund, and that's another reason why it was a little iffy with Fox Point, and why we want the direct payment with Fox Point, is because if you get ARM fund,
It has to be-
one of the criteria is public access, and the town doesn't want public access to Fox Point Conservation Area. So if you had another area, like the Ripleys, they were private people who were considering it, we did all that. Then who were we gonna have be the steward of that? Was it Southeast Land Trust? So you have to find somebody.
They were actually going through the county.
They were going through the county, that's
Yeah.
right. So somebody though has to hold the
Yeah.
easement, because a town can't hold their own easement because it's a conflict of interest. So you have to have some outward entity.
So can we create a foundation for Newington?
I was gonna just let you know that I am not around January 13th, April 14th, and May 12th.
Jan 13.
Can we schedule around you, or do you want us to have meetings? What do you want?
Hey, we're done this, so few
So you
people.
purposely went on vacation the second Thursday
So
of
say,
every
so
month.
Jane, say it again, it's January,
13th,
no, I know, so January,
April 14th, and May 12th. No, I've gone on other vacations and they were up in the second.
So you're going for 3 months on vacation?
She's
No,
only going for 3 days.
no, I'm going on 7 trips. 7
Okay, I'm
trips.
just curious. I'm curious.
really none of our
Can we change
business.
If they all
the
go.
meetings to a different
Well,
time?
can you tell us where you're going, anywhere fun?
Yeah, if it happens, I mean, some of them, so Croatia's its 3rd year of postponement. Switzerland and Spain is on its 2nd year of postponement. So Turkey was new. Then I'm doing, Snowbird and 2 trips to Jay Peak.
Oh, good for you.
I know I would not be available for March tenth.
So, I tell you what, when Derek is,
I'm
Derek.
here.
Eric's here, but we need other
Well,
members.
Derek is the vice chair, Jane is the chair.
Yeah.
When we approach the January meeting, I'll reach out to you and say, if we have nothing, that's not an issue, if we have
Right.
something, maybe we'll push it back a week. And you guys are fairly flexible, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, so let's just see, if we have nothing coming in, then we don't need to worry about it.
yeah.
Well, good for you, I'm glad you're going somewhere.
Well, I might not be, the way things are going.
So that's tentative dates, right?
Yeah,
Because of
COVID.
inter-country travel,
Yeah,
you may not be able to get back to the United States.
yeah.
That might not be a bad thing if you're stuck in Switzerland for a year, right?
Could be neutral.
Yeah, I could, yeah, I might end up living there.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't pass my COVID test.
Okay.
Oh, we need a motion.
I can't do it, Jane, don't look at me.
Adjourn.
Yes, I'll second it. All those in favor, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Oh, no more talking, you adjourn.